Hey there, and welcome to the 5-Day Fast Start. My name is Jonathan Boyd. I'm the founder of Breakthrough Guitar, and I'm going to be your host through this entire 5-day training. Okay? What you're going to learn when you watch this training is that you are going to discover the proven yet little known path of how anyone, regardless of natural talent, finger size, experience, or age, can go from a casual hobbyist who plays at the guitar to become a true musician, an accomplished, complete guitarist who can do it all. So let's go ahead and dive in. First things first, I just want to congratulate you for being here, for watching this 5-day fast start, for sticking here with me and going through this training. You absolutely made a great decision to be here, and the reason why is because when you take action, when you do what you're about to learn, you absolutely will reap the rewards of an ability and a skill that most people only dream about. For their entire lives, they dream about it, and you're going to be able to do it, okay? So just the fact that you're here right now with me, that you're watching this, it shows that you're serious, right? You're serious about improving. You're committed to improving your guitar playing. And I just want to encourage you to keep that up, because that is what makes the difference. And that is what is going to get you to where you want to go. So first of all, what is the purpose of this training? Well, the literal purpose of this training is to walk you down the right path to become the guitar player you always wanted to be faster than you previously thought possible. Now, maybe that sounds outrageous to you right now, or it sounds really ambitious, but that is the point. That's why I made this training, to help you do just that, okay? Speaking of which, why did I make this? Because I couldn't find this anywhere. There are so many little missing pieces and puzzle pieces and just things that most guitar players never find out about. They can't learn it anywhere. It's not out there, right? That's why I created this training, to show you everything collected in one place, to show you the shortest and most effective path forward. And this has been compiled after helping nearly 1 million guitar players. Okay, this is proven. So let's start with an overview of what you're going to learn by the time you finish day 5. So first of all, on day 1, I want to explain one thing, that each day has a theme. Okay, it's going to have one theme that we're going to talk about per day. Now, the theme of day 1 is the number one reason great guitar players rise above everyone else. What you're going to learn is why the most important part of becoming a good guitar player has absolutely nothing to do with playing guitar. You'll see where the actual ability of playing guitar, where does that actually come from? And what's the reason that, the real musicians out there, why do they get so much better results than everybody else? It's not what most people think it is, okay? It's not talent, finger size, not your age, it's not theory, how smart you are, any of that stuff. We'll talk about why that is. We're also going to talk about the 7 damaging myths that actually keep most mediocre and amateur players from ever progressing, and they stay stuck for the whole time they play guitar. We'll talk about the only thing that determines whether or not you improve when you pick up your guitar, right? We're going to talk about the single biggest puzzle piece that most guitar players are missing, which is actually why they spin their wheels and they don't really make progress when they sit down to practice. So on day 2, the theme of day 2 is the invisible forces that are holding you back without you even knowing it. Okay? You're going to learn why most aspiring guitar players aren't further along. Why aren't they better? Even though there's way more guitar information than ever existed in history, right? We'll talk about the 3 most common types of guitar teachers, why all of them will get you stuck, and what you should actually do instead. I'll show you what the great guitar theory trap is. This is what prevents most players from ever playing the way they want and staying stuck the whole time they're trying. We'll talk about exactly why the pros make it look so easy, and you can start doing it too. But even if they didn't study theory, how do they actually do that? I'll show you. And we'll talk about why your next breakthrough is always hidden in what you don't see, and how to actually find it so you can get to the next level. So day 3, the theme for day 3 is secret tools the pros use that most guitar players never find out about, including the invisible string pattern that unlocks the guitar neck forever and instantly makes everything make sense. Now, that may sound too good to be true right now, but just wait until you see how it works, and you'll see why it works. We'll talk about the 7 feelings, how they let you play up and down the guitar neck without having to think about it. In fact, you don't even need to know the names of the notes to do this. We'll talk about the 2 overarching, the biggest components of guitar playing that you need to develop and balance if you want to become an accomplished guitarist. We'll talk about the 5 freedom skills and the 5 style skills and a whole lot more. We'll talk about what order you should learn things in if you want to make the fastest progress in the shortest time and actually avoid all the frustrations and headaches that bog so many guitar players down and keep them stuck. And finally, on day 3, you'll learn why F plus P plus fit plus H plus R equals freedom on guitar, and a guaranteed way for you to achieve that. Now on day 4, the theme is going to be how can you actually make definite progress every single time you pick up your guitar. We'll talk about the 9 easy progress elements that make up the fastest and most effective way to improve. We'll talk about the most effective learning layout so that when you go out there online, you know exactly what to look for so you can learn in the fastest and most effective way possible. We'll talk about your fingers. If your brain, your fingers won't do what your brain tells them to do sometimes, we'll talk about why stiff or inflexible fingers that don't really cooperate is actually 100% normal and what all the pros do to get around it. You can do that too, okay? We'll talk about the number one thing you can do to improve all the aspects of your guitar playing at the same time, simultaneously by doing one simple thing. And then we'll give you one easy exercise that will reveal how much improvement you can actually make in your fingers' ability to move independently and stretch and move across the fretboard. Now finally, on day 5, we'll talk about the secret sauce that takes you from decent to great. And this is probably the most important part, so you definitely want to stick around to day 5. In fact, you want to stick around for all the days because all of this connects together, and you definitely want to see the missing pieces that you probably have never heard before. So we'll talk about on day 5 why you can't avoid blind spots no matter how much you learn or practice. What should you actually do about that? We'll talk about the one thing that top performers in probably every field have in common that actually takes them to the top, and it's not, again, what most people think it is. It's not talent, it's not working for 15 hours a day or tons of practice or anything like that. Okay, we'll talk about that on day 5. We'll also talk about how a lot of the most famous guitar players like Jimi Hendrix, Buckethead, Steve Vai, we'll talk about how they really learned how to play, right? There's some stuff that the public knows, and then there's stuff that the pro guitar players know. We'll talk about how they really learn how to play. We'll talk about the secret sauce. Right? What is that secret sauce that takes players from a decent, doing a few things fairly well or whatever, to great, which nobody can deny that they're a great player, and anybody can use this at any time. And finally, we'll talk about the proven plan and a recipe to reach your specific guitar playing goals. But when you stick around with me to day 5, I also have a special bonus tool for you that I'm going to give you on day 5. This is going to help you stay on track and know exactly what to do forever in your guitar playing, okay? But before we dive into all this stuff, you might be wondering, who am I? Why would you listen to me about all this, right? Why should I be talking to you about all this stuff? Well, what most people don't realize is that I actually used to be where you might be right now, right? I played guitar for a long time, but I just, for whatever reason, I just felt stuck. Like when I sat down to practice, most of the time I just wasted my time. I just spun my wheels. I didn't really get anywhere with it, even though I tried, right? I mean, I pick up the guitar and it drove me insane when I kept hitting the wrong strings. I'd hit the wrong notes. I'd mute the notes. It just drove me nuts. And I got so sick and tired of playing the same old boring stuff. It just disgusting when you want to pick up the guitar and you already know that you're going to play the same stuff. And when I looked at the fretboard, it's like I just feel so boxed in. I felt like I was in a cage almost, like limited to 3 frets. Where the rest of the fretboard was just this huge mystery. It was so daunting. It was so scary. It was so intimidating. And I tried everything, right? I tried books. I tried courses, I tried YouTube, I tried it all. I tried private teachers, but for whatever reason, I just always felt like, I'm just missing something. There's just something I'm not getting. It's not clicking. It's not coming together. And, after a while, I was like, there's something wrong with me. It's my fault. It's my fault. And, when I saw the players on stage or coffee shops or restaurants, whatever, I got jealous. They made it look so easy. And I just wondered, how do they make it look so easy, right? How do they make it look so easy? And after so much time of trying, so much wasted hours of practice and all that, I got to the point where I started to think I was just afraid I would never figure it out. I'm never going to be able to figure this all out, right? But fast forward to today, and I've helped nearly 1 million guitar players. In fact, by the time you're watching this, it's probably going to be over 1 million. So what actually happened? Well, there was a local jazz teacher at a university. And I happened to meet with him outside of the university. In fact, I was at his house, and he showed me how it all fits together. He showed me how all the puzzle pieces fit together. It was so simple. That's the moment when everything changed. I literally remember I cried because when I got home, I cried because I'd been wanting to play that way for so long. And finally, here it was. Finally, I discovered what I was missing. And it was true. It was possible. I could do it. And, I could never find those pieces of what he explained to me, what he showed me. I could never find that anywhere. I could never find it on YouTube. I bought tons of courses, tons of books. I tried for years, right? Years, and I could never find those missing pieces. And that's the reason it lit a fire under me, and that's the reason I went on a mission, because I wanted to help as many guitar players as possible with this information. That's why I made this training for you right now, to fill in those holes and gaps, to give you those missing links, to give you those pieces that will put it all together for you, right? And like I said, at this point, I've helped nearly a million guitar players in 28 countries, and I consider it a privilege. But after doing that, that's a lot of people, right? I've seen a lot of stuff, a lot of ways of learning, and this training, I've compiled the fastest, the most effective path to become the guitar player you always wanted to be. So in short, listen, this simply works, right? It works. If you work it, it will work for you. If you simply follow what I'm going to tell you, what you're going to learn over these 5 days with me, it absolutely will change your guitar playing forever. So let's dive into day one. And with day one, I'm going to start with something you may not be expecting. I'm going to warn you that what you're about to learn is extremely different, very different, 180 different from probably what you've seen before, right? Why is that? Why is this different? Well, there are a few reasons. First of all, if you keep doing the same things you've always done, you're going to keep getting what you've always gotten, right? So when we pick up the guitar and we play the same old songs over and over again, what happens every single time? We feel bad, we get disgusted, we're not satisfied with our progress. It happens over and over again. It's a pattern, right? Same thing with going out there and trying to learn on YouTube, getting frustrated, putting the guitar down. It's a pattern, right? So if we do what we've always done, we're going to keep getting the same result. It's not going to change. We're not going to get better. So we have to change something. We have to do something different. Like I said, doing something new, doing something different is the only way you're going to get new results, right? So we have to do something different. And here's a big one that I want to point out, that I've talked to a lot of guitar players over the years, and there are a lot of guitar players out there who think that if they don't have a guitar in their hands, if they're not playing chords or something like that, they think that they're not learning, right? They think that they're not actually learning guitar. And 100% of the time, those people are never good guitar players. And the reason is because they get in their own way, right? They think that I have to be playing guitar if I want to improve on guitar, and that's not true, as you're going to see. As an example, a surgeon, right? Somebody who goes to school for surgery. Well, first of all, they go to school. They learn how to do it. And then they go to the operating room and pick up the instrument and perform the surgery, right? Guitar is going to be the same way. And that's what we're going to focus on this training. So with that said, I want you to sit back. I want you to relax, almost like you're watching a movie, right? And I want you to absorb this new journey. We're doing something new here. And what you're about to see, what you're about to learn and discover is going to set you up to become an accomplished true musician. Okay? Become the guitar player you always wanted to be. Now, first things first. A musician sings through the instrument. Okay? A musician sings through the instrument. It's the musician, the person, who plays the instrument. The musician is the person that plays the music. It's not the other way around. The guitar doesn't play the musician. The guitar doesn't do anything. Okay? The music doesn't come from an instrument. The music comes from you, inside you, the person. And that means that you, the person, have to change. You have to change how you think in order for your guitar playing to change, right? We said we need to do something different. So like I said, I want you to get this in your head that you have to become a musician. You, the person, have to become internally a musician before you are going to be able to play guitar like a musician. Okay? It starts with you. So how do we do that? Well, it's not through theory. We know that a lot of famous artists, like Eric Clapton, for example, they never studied theory at all, right? So it's not that. It's not about natural talent, the size of your fingers, how smart you are, when you started playing the guitar. It all starts with what you think. Okay, what you think when you think about playing guitar and picking up your guitar. You have to change your thinking and your results on guitar will change. So here's a perfect example of the wrong thinking. A lot of guitar players think that you have to learn guitar theory, you have to learn music theory before you can play well. And as you're going to see later, we're going to talk about the great guitar theory trap. That's one of the biggest traps that most people fall into, that this is not a true statement. But because a lot of people think this, then they never are able to play the way they want, right? So we're going to show you how do you change that. And that's why I said this is why we're going to work on the most important thing first, how to think like a true musician. Okay, so you can actually become one and then play like one. Has to work in that order. All right. So next concept. What you think is what you produce. All right, so let me explain that's going to make a little bit more sense. So we have thoughts. When you have a thought, it creates a feeling inside. You have a feeling, right? That feeling drives you to take an action. And that action is what creates your results. Okay? So if we look at a tree, if we look down here where thoughts, like the tree starts at the roots, right? Grows from the roots. So if we think thoughts are like roots, right? The thoughts give way to, or give birth, or whatever you want to call it, to the trunk of the tree, which is kind of like feelings, right? So that comes from the roots, goes to the trunk, feelings, and then it finally branches out to your actions. The feelings lead to actions, and then finally your actions, the branches, is where the results are produced. So the results, this is an apple tree, the results are the fruit, right? The fruit of your labor, the fruit of what you produce. So I want you to remember this, that thoughts lead to your feelings, which then lead to the actions, which then lead to the results. So like I said earlier, an example, if we think that you have to learn theory before you can play well, look what happens. If this is my thought, you have to learn theory before you can play well, how am I going to feel about that? Well, first of all, to me, it feels intimidating. It feels like, great, it's boring. I'm not looking forward to it. I dread it. I don't want to learn theory, right? But if I'm serious enough about my guitar playing, like a lot of guitar players are, I'm going to try to force myself, at least in the beginning, to learn theory. And it's not going to feel great, but that's what I'm going to do. So I feel like I have to learn theory. I don't really like it. It's intimidating. So what are my actions? My actions are, I'm going to try it. I'm going to try to learn theory. It's not going to be great. And then finally, what are the results of that? The results are usually that you get more confused. It's frustrating. You feel down. You feel like you're not smart enough. At least I did, if you can relate to that. That's the results that you get from this thought, right? And I have never ever in my entire life, we'll talk about this later, but I have never ever heard any person say, I learned all the theory from the books, now I can play amazingly. It doesn't work that way. So we'll talk about how it does work. Okay? So speaking of which, I want to go over the 7 biggest guitar myths that actually keep most guitar players, most amateur, mediocre guitar players, that keep them stuck, right? Remember, it's about what you think. If you change what you think, you can eventually change your results. So here are wrong ways to think. We don't want to do this. These are myths. First of all, like we just said, you need to learn theory before you can play well. That is a myth. It's not true. And we can prove it because many of the most famous guitarists, like Eric Clapton, for example, Jimi Hendrix, they never studied theory. They couldn't read music. It's a known fact. Stevie Ray Vaughan, he couldn't read music, right? Eric Clapton, there's so many others. In fact, if you think about musicians who are blind, like Stevie Wonder, for example, he can't read music. He can't see it. So how is it that he's so good and he can't read music, right? This is a misconception. This is not true. We're going to talk more about this on day 2 and what you should do about it. Myth number 2, that you need natural talent to become a good guitar player, right? So again, this is a myth. When most people who are not good guitar players, when they go to a show or they see a concert or they go to a restaurant, there's a good player, they look at a good guitar player and they say, he's so talented. But what does that actually mean? What does it mean that he's, quote, talented? Does that mean that he was born, he could pick up the guitar and just play jazz tunes? No, nobody can do that. When somebody says he's talented, what they're saying is they're just putting a label on it. They're naming something that they don't know how it happened. So they just call it talent. But what they don't see is what the musicians practice in private, right? They don't see that. And they also don't see what the musicians are thinking about when they play. As you'll see later, there is no mystery as to why someone is a good guitar player. That's why it's possible for you to become one, because we can show you the direct step-by-steps to get there. There is no mystery. It's not about talent. It's about what you do, right? And we'll talk about that a little bit more. But anyway, there's even a book actually that says, it says it right here, greatness isn't born. It's grown. There's a whole book about this. Talent doesn't actually exist. It's a label. And guitar itself is a skill, just like driving, just like tying your shoes. So when you learn how to drive a car, what do? You get in the seat, or you learn a few things about the guitar, the car, about how it works, like the steering wheel. What does it do? Turn it this way, turn it that way. The pedals. Here's the gas pedal, here's the brake pedal, etc. And then guess what? You do it. And at the beginning, you're not any good at it. and then you get better and better and better, and then now you don't even have to think about it. Guitar works exactly the same way. So when you see those players who are just playing and not even thinking about anything, it's exactly the same reason as driving a car without thinking. It's the same thing, and you can do that too. So myth number 3, you have to be smart. And I think this one's kind of hilarious. When you finally figure it out, when you finally understand how guitar works, it's hilarious thinking about all those people who say you have to be smart. In fact, my dad, I remember, when my dad played guitar, and when I was younger, he always used to say, like, people like Jimmy Page and Steve Morse, they're just so smart. That's why they get it, because they get all the theory, and that's why they're good. But as I later found out when I became a good guitar player myself, that's just not true at all. It's not. And the reason a lot of people think this is because theory seems complicated. There's a lot of numbers and charts and symbols and all that, and it just seems like math. It seems like you just have to be intellectually smart to understand it, and that's just not true. It's just not true at all. The reason that a lot of people think of that is what I call a symptom of poor presentation. So it's kind of like taking music theory that would exist 200 years ago or something, in classical music, and you just see that presentation, and therefore we think that it's complicated, right? But like I said before, if you can tie your shoes, if you can talk, if you can drive a car, well, you can easily understand how music works, and you can do it, and you can play it, right? And again, many of the best players never studied theory, so you can do that. So myth number 4. One of the biggest myths is that you need to go to school, or you need to be, quote, classically trained to be good. But, I can't tell you the amount of times I have taught directly or have friends or come across people who, went to school for music. They studied theory in school or college or even like grad school or whatever. And literally 100% of the time, those people have, in my experience, 100% of the time, those people have always wished they could unlearn what they studied in school, because it makes them think too much and they can't really play. I mean, they can play something that they can memorize, but outside of that, they're overthinking everything, and they wish that they never would have had the schooling so they could start out like a lot of the pros did. And plus, many of the best players in the world actually dropped out of school and became the best players. Pat Metheny is a great example. If you don't know who that is, please look him up. In my opinion, greatest jazz guitarist of all time, just my personal preference. And John Mayer. John Mayer also dropped out of music school, right? So I want to point out something. Like all of these myths, if you think about it critically, you'll find that it doesn't have legs. And when we think about schools, a school has to, in order for you to pay an arm and a leg, as much as a brand new car every single semester, well, they have to fill it with fluff. Like, they have to think about how are we going to fill a curriculum to be able to come every single semester for 4 years. It's not that learning guitar takes that long, or that there's that much to learn. There is a lot to learn, but it's not that it takes 4 years or to get a degree to learn guitar. It's just that they have to fill up the curriculum with stuff, so you'll pay for the tuition, and that's just the truth. But instead of if they don't just solely focus on making you a better guitar player. If they did that, then they wouldn't have this huge curriculum. You wouldn't have to take all these random classes and have credits and buy books and go to class and all that stuff. You wouldn't have to do that, right? And finally, the term classically trained. The term classically trained doesn't mean anything. When somebody says, oh, he's classically trained, she's classically trained. But if you literally think about that for more than 5 seconds, again, you'll find that it has no legs. What does that mean, that they're classically trained? It just means that they learned how music works and then they practiced it. There is nothing else, right? Like, there isn't anything else out there. You learn how music works and you do it on your guitar. So again, classically trained is a meaningless word. It's just something that sounds fancy, in my opinion, for people to pay more money for college or whatever. But again, it's a myth. So myth number 5, you have to be able to read music to play well. And we've already talked about this. Blind musicians like Ray Charles, Stevie Wonder, there's so many great musicians who are blind. They can't read music, and they're amazing. So you do not have to be able to read music to play well. And also, let's just think about this. All babies, including you learn to talk before you can read. And like you learn to talk fluently, right? Before you went to any kind of a grammar class. Music itself is a language, just like English. It's just through sounds instead of spoken English is obviously through sounds, but it's words, where we use words. in a spoken language. But music is just sounds. It's the same thing. And playing music is just like learning how to talk. All the great players, they learn how to talk or play before they ever learn how to read or do anything like that. And you can be an exceptional player without ever reading music. For example, Eric Clapton. Myth number 6, you have to start at a young age, or you can't be too old to learn. Again, this is another one of these myths that if you think about it for more than 5 seconds, it doesn't make any sense. There's no logic to it. So there's no like governmental cutoff point. The government can't say, well, if you're 75, you're too old to learn guitar. It just doesn't work like that. It's a decision, right? Playing guitar, like I said, is a skill. Like tying your shoes or driving a car or playing a sport or whatever it is. It's a skill. At any age, at any level, at any time, you can simply follow the steps to learn a skill, right? If you simply pick up the guitar and you follow the steps to learn a skill, you will get better at it. You will learn it. And any step that you do can be made small enough for literally any person at any level, any age, anything can be made small enough and easy enough for them to accomplish. Like I said, it's just a decision. This is just a myth. It's an illogical fear that, oh no, what if I'm too old? Well, that doesn't mean anything. It's a decision. Decide to pick up the guitar and follow the steps, and you will get better and you will get good at it. That's it. So decide that you're going to get good at the guitar, and you will. So, myth number 7, you have to have the right fingers for guitar. Now, a lot of people say, oh, I just don't have the right fingers, my fingers are too fat, or something like that. And again, if you just look around a little bit, there are guitar players out there with every single size fingers imaginable, and they're great guitar players. There are young girls that are 5 years old that are pretty good at guitar. There are guys, we have one student who's 99, he's probably 100 by now, but he's a great player, right? And there's pros who can just absolutely tear up the guitar. In fact, one of the greatest guitar players, in my opinion, of all time, he is one of the fastest guitar players of all time. His name was Sean Lane. And Sean had a disease where he gained a lot of weight, but the point is, he was very, very, very overweight, and he had huge fingers, and he could shred on the guitar. He was incredible, and he was amazing, right? So it doesn't matter. What matters is, are you going to decide to pick up the guitar and do something about it? Are you going to learn the skill and follow the steps? And finally, this guy right here, his name is Mark Goffney. This guy has no arms, okay? He plays guitar with his feet, and he's dang good at it. In fact, you can watch videos of him on YouTube playing guitar with his feet, and he sounds really good. So look, if this guy can learn with his feet, if you even have arms, if you even have fingers, you have a huge advantage. And it doesn't matter what size they are, okay? Just get to learn it, right? Now, one other thing I want to mention is that most aspiring guitar players, people who aren't pros, they don't realize that just like athletes, they train their bodies on the gym. They train their bodies in the gym, right? To be able to perform, to go out there on the field, on the court, etc. Well, good guitar players do the same thing, but they do that with their fingers. It's almost like the fretboard is the field of play, right? And they train their fingers like athletes to be able to perform on the field. And you train it, you do it. Anybody can do it. It's just a matter of following some steps to do that. And also, I want to point out that literally every single guitar player in history has learned it. No baby was ever born being able to play guitar. So every single guitar player that's ever existed in history learned how to do it. And you can do it too, okay? So, if these myths, if it's not about theory, like how much theory you know, if it's not about talent, if it's not about how smart you are or what school you went to or whether whether or not you went to school or reading music or how old you are or how big your fingers are, well, what is it then? Like, why is it that some people can get really good at guitar and other people don't? It's so simple, it's going to blow your mind, okay? It's what you do. It's what you do when you pick up your guitar. And if that sounds super simple, then that's a good thing, because that means that there's no more mystery. It means that there's nothing else crazy out there that you have to go find out about and, just hope that you can learn, hope that you can solve the puzzle or whatever it is, because it is this simple, right? And I am going to show you a few tools later that the pros use, like I said, in one of the future days, but it really is that simple. Most people just so drastically overthink it, right? It's so simple. To give you a simple example, and again, this is going to sound too simple, but if you are in front of a flight of stairs and you step up the first stair, your elevation will, in fact, 100% of the time increase every single step you walk up. It's the same for guitar. You take the steps and you get better. It's that simple. The trick is knowing the right steps, and that's what we're going to talk about. So again, like, guitar is simple cause and effect. It's not magic. It's not about talent. It's not about all those myths, right? It's like a recipe in the kitchen. And whether you like cooking or not or whatever, doesn't matter. It's about following a recipe. So on guitar, when you do the right things, in other words, like if you use the right ingredients and you mix them together in the right order, well, I mean, success is inevitable. Like, for example, if you go to bake a cake and you follow all the ingredients, you use all the right ingredients, you follow the directions, it's impossible for you not to end up with a cake. It's all about cause and effect. It's all about finding the right steps and following the steps, and you will end up with the result that you want on the guitar. It is that simple, and that's why it's possible for anyone, including you, right now, to play guitar the way you always wanted, right? By simply following the recipe. Follow the right steps in the right order, and we're going to show you what those steps are. Now, I want you to think about this. Here's another way to think about it. At the end of the day, there's just you and your guitar. If you're sitting in a room, there's just you and your guitar. Nothing happens. The guitar is not going to do anything. Nothing happens until you pick it up. And you're not going to get better unless you do the right things, follow the recipe, follow the steps to get better. And, if we want to say that differently, unless you do the right things, until you do the right things, then you're never going to be able to play the way you want. It's that simple, right? And I know I'm being repetitive about this, but I want you to really understand how simple it really is. It's simple cause and effect, right? So like we said, the trick is knowing what to do. What are the right things to do? And that's where most guitar players get tripped up. That's what they really never figure out. That's really what it's about. So that brings us to the most important thing that we can talk about first, the most important thing that you can decide and what you can do first, which is what is your actual destination on the guitar. So if you drive somewhere in your car, of course, you don't ever go anywhere until you decide where you're going. You have a destination in mind, right? And let's say you're in a new town or a new city, and you need to go to a store, and you don't know how to get there. Well, what are you going to do? You have to know where you're going first. You know you're going to go to that store. You punch it in your GPS, and the GPS tells you turn by turn how to get to that store, and then you get there, right? Another example is a grocery store. Let's say you want to go to your local grocery store. Well, what do? You have this destination in mind. You get in your car. You take all the right turns to get to the grocery store, and you're not surprised when you get there. You get out of the car. You know you're walking into the grocery store. It's not surprising. So here's another cool thing, that when you follow the right steps on guitar, it's exciting because you see yourself getting better. You know that you're going to progress, but it's after a while, it's no surprise that you reach your goals. It's going to be no surprise that you play the songs that you want. No surprise that you can improvise across the neck, because at some point you just know. It's just like following a GPS. When you have the right steps, you know for a fact you're going to get there. And that's the amazing part about it. The biggest thing that most guitar players don't even know they're missing is that they just don't know where they're going, right? A lot of guitar players, I can't tell you how many guitar players I've taught that say, well, I just want to get better. What do you want to do with your playing? Well, I just want to get better. I just really want to improve, and then there was one particular guy who always said, I'm just so tired of feeling mediocre. I just don't want to feel mediocre. Okay, but what does that mean? Like, I can't get you to not feeling mediocre. I don't really know what that means to you. If you can't define it, if you can't define what it is that you want to do, where you want to get, well, you can't get there. It's just like going to the store. If you can't decide what store you're going to, well, you're not going to go to any stores, right? And again, this is what guitar players do. They metaphorically just drive around aimlessly with their guitar playing. So just imagine if you got in your car, you did not have a destination in mind, and you just started driving. And maybe you took this turn, then you took that turn, and then, oh, this turn looks nice, and you go down this path, and you go down that path. What's going to happen? What's going to happen is you're going to waste a lot of time. That's for sure. You're going to get tired. You're going to get frustrated because you're not really getting anywhere. And you're going to run out of gas, and you're going to have to stop. That's exactly what guitar players do, and their reason is because they don't know where they're going. They don't have a definite destination of where they're going. And that's the most important, the very first thing to decide, the very first thing to get down, so you know what you're doing and you have a direction, right? So I want you to really think about this over the next couple of days. Success on guitar is not an accident, and it's not even a surprise. Like I said, when you have the right steps and you know where you're going, it's not a surprise and it's not an accident. It's a plan. You don't just stumble upon good guitar skills. Nobody just woke up one day and picked up a guitar and was like, "Oh man, I can play some Jimi Hendrix. How about that? That's amazing." It doesn't. That doesn't exist. It's not a real thing, right? The best guitar players, what they do is they decide what they want to do. They decide where they want to go, and exactly the same way that you put a destination into your GPS, and it tells you all the right turns. Same thing. You find somebody who knows where. Who has already been where you want to go on guitar, and they literally tell you all the right turns. All you have to do is follow them. That's it. You just follow the steps until you get there. And that's the secret. Like it is that simple, right? So now let's focus on you. What is your actual goal? We need to work on defining what is your goal so we know what direction to take you in, and we know how to break down the steps to actually get you there, right? If you don't have a destination, you can't determine the steps to get there. So think about this. What would you love to be able to do on guitar? Do you want to play your favorite songs? Okay, well, which songs? Which exact songs? What do you want to play? Do you want to build a repertoire of songs? Well, okay, which songs? How many songs do you want? And by when do you want those songs to be learned? We have to define these things, right? Do you want to play at an open mic night? Well, what do you want to play? How many songs are you going to play, right? Do you want to write your first song? Do you want to play on stage with the band? Do you want to be able to improvise across a fretboard in any key? We have to define these things. So again, the more clear your goal, the easier and faster it is to go to that exact location. Again, just like a GPS. As an example, let's say you're in a new city, and if you put in your GPS the name of a town, it will take you to a general place, right? But it won't take you anywhere specific. You can go in the direction of the town, and technically, when you cross the boundary of the town, you're in the town, but does that mean you are where you want to go? No, not necessarily. So what if we zoom in a little more? Let's make it a little more specific. A better idea would be to put in a neighborhood in the GPS. So that way it will take you to the town, and then it will take you to that neighborhood. But you still don't really know exactly where you're going, right? You're not just going to park on the side of the street and say, "We're here." So let's think about now a restaurant. If you define a restaurant, of course, then your GPS can take you to the right town, in the right neighborhood, and that exact building, the exact restaurant. So you need to do the same thing with your guitar playing. Define specifically what your goal is, right? So again, only when you define your destination, that's how you can determine how to get there. That's it. Now, I don't want you to overthink it. It doesn't have to be the absolute perfect, destination or whatever it is. We just need a definite direction to go in. Okay, we're going to adjust along the way. Just like when you're driving, there's, maybe there's road work and you have to take a detour or whatever it is. There's always going to be something that we have to figure out and adjust along the way. But the destination is what we want to decide, because we're just going to keep going straight to that destination. Okay. So now, for today, I want you to do an action step. Now, I want you to imagine, take a moment and imagine. And you don't have to do this necessarily right now, but you can set aside some time a little bit later to do it. But I would suggest while you're watching this, as soon as we're done here today, go ahead and do it, right? While it's fresh in your mind. So I just want you to imagine if everything went great over this next year. Ideally, what would you love to be able to pick up your guitar and do within 12 months from now? If you think about yourself 12 months from right now, what would you love to be able to do on a guitar? What I want you to do is define one specific goal, and I want you to refine it to make it more clear. Okay, and I'll give you an example in just a second. What I want you to do today is write your goal. When you define this goal and refine it, you're going to write your goal on a little piece of paper. Doesn't matter if it's a sticky note, piece of paper that you tear out of a notebook, doesn't matter, right? I just want you to write it on a piece of paper. And I want you to write this exact phrase: 12 months from now, comma, I will be able to, what I'm saying right here is right here. 12 months from now, I will be able to, and then you want to insert your goal, whatever this goal is, okay? Once you do that, once you write your goal on a piece of paper, I want you to put it somewhere where you're going to see it every single day. Maybe that's a sticky note on your bathroom mirror. Maybe you have a desk. maybe where your guitar is, you put it where your guitar is, but it's got to be somewhere that you see it every day. It can't be in your closet, can't be under your bed. You need to see it every single day, okay? So here's an example of writing the goal, right, to help you clarify. So 12 months from now, I will be able to, what I could write is improvise. And that's just too vague. So this is a too vague example. I want to be able to improvise. Well, technically, just like driving to a town, right, I can show you how to improvise with 2 notes or 1 note in 5 seconds. So there, then you can improvise. And you might say, what? But that's not what I meant. Okay, so what do you mean, right? You have to define it more clearly. A better definition would be improvise across the neck. Okay, so now we have a little bit more definition. We know when we want to be able to improvise, we want to be able to move across the neck and improvise, right? But again, I can show you 2 easy positions or a couple of simple notes that you can move across the neck and then improvise. So, but that's not really what you're talking about, right? What are you talking about? What do you actually want to be able to do? So here's the best version, right? This is the most defined version. I want to be able to improvise across the neck in all 12 keys. That's clear. I know exactly what to do, and we know exactly what to work on to get you there, right? If you would have said, I want to play my first song around the campfire, well, then we wouldn't be working on anything that has to do with improvising across the neck, right? We would be working on chords. This is why it's so important to define exactly where you want to go, because that determines what turns you take, what steps you take, how you actually get there, okay? So again, action step is you need to write your goal on a piece of paper. Start with 12 months from now, I will be able to, and then define and refine your goal. Write it down on a piece of paper, keep it somewhere you can see it. All right, so summary of day 1. I'm going to give you some action steps here in just a second. Summary of day 1. What did we talk about? Well, we talked about the purpose of this training is to walk you down the right path to become the guitar player you always wanted to be. And we want to get you there faster than you ever thought possible. Okay? I created this training because I couldn't find it anywhere out there. Right? That's why I wanted to show you these missing steps, show you these missing links, these missing pieces, so you can put the puzzle together and play the way you always want. All right? We also talked about how you, the person internally, have to become a musician in order for your playing to sound musical. Right? It all starts with how you think, and that's the reason for this training. We're working on how you think so you can become a musician. We talked about the 7 guitar myths, right? It does not take natural talent or learning theory or being smart or going to school or reading music or starting early or having the right fingers to become a great guitar player, right? What is it about? It is about what you do. Your progress and ability is directly determined by what you do every single time you pick up a guitar, okay? And finally, we talked about how you have to, in order to know what to do, that's the trick, right? You have to define your destination. Exactly what you want to be able to do within a time frame, and for now let's keep it at 1 year, let's keep it at 12 months, in order to get there, right? You do not get there by chance. You do not get there by luck. You do not just stumble upon good guitar skills. You have to define where you want to go, and then we'll figure out the steps to get there, okay? So action steps. Like we said before, I want you to define your goal, answer the prompt that I gave you, and I want you to write your goal on a piece of paper and put it somewhere where you're going to see it every single day. Okay, that's your action step for today. Also, of course, second action step is going to be come back and watch tomorrow's lesson. Make sure that you come back tomorrow. Make sure that you watch tomorrow's lesson. And the reason is because it's so important to get all of the information. You can't have missing pieces and holes and gaps. You need to get all the information because each one of these lessons in this training builds on each other so you can see how it all connects together. So when you watch day 2 tomorrow, let's talk about what you're going to learn. You're going to discover why most aspiring guitar players aren't farther along, even though there's so much more guitar information than there ever has been before. We'll talk about the 3 most common types of guitar teachers, why all of them will get you stuck, and what you should do instead. We'll talk about the great guitar theory trap and the reason why it prevents most guitar players from ever playing the way they want. We'll show you how to avoid that, okay? And we're going to talk about how the pros make guitar look so easy. How do they do that? Even if they don't study theory, how do they stand up there and float effortlessly across the neck? And how you can do that too. Okay? And then finally, we're going to talk about why your next breakthrough, the next level for you, is always hidden in what you don't yet see and how to find it. So thank you for being here for day 1. I will see you there on day 2.